Hey everybody, it's Amber with Amber Marie and Company, and today I'm going to show you how to make an adorable Easter wreath for your front door. It's springtime and it is time to switch out whatever you might have on your front door and get something spring and fresh. This wreath is going to have Easter eggs in it. I'm going to show you how to make a bow, and it's all very simple and easy. Look at Winston, he's already bored listening to it. He's heard it a million times. So this is my trusty dog, Winston, right here. He's going to try to eat all of our fake flowers today, and I'm going to try to keep him from doing that while making a wreath and showing you how to do it. So it's simple, it's easy, and you can do this from home. All you have to do is follow along. So first, I'm going to start with my grapevine wreath. This is a 24-inch grapevine wreath that I'm going to start with today, and I have this on a wood stand so that way I can kind of see the creation as I'm making it. I'm going to use this beautiful greenery bush right here, and don't forget one thing, I will link all of our products in the description below, so if there's anything that you see that you love that you want to purchase, all of these items are available at ambermarieandco.com. Then I'm going to use two of these kind of sugary, glittery Easter egg picks. If I have the need, I have these cute little Real Touch tulips. They're really fun, they feel real, and they are wired also. So if I have the room in my wreath, I'm gonna maybe sprinkle some of these. I have this bouquet left over from last year, and I thought, oh, that might look pretty, because this wreath is all gonna be pink and colorful for spring. It's definitely very inviting for Easter. Then I have, I'm going to use these two bushes as well. I love these because they actually have little berries on them. They're white, a lighter texture, and also just a different texture in contrast to the other bush that I have. And then I have this really pretty pink, it's kind of a, I don't know, it's like a little mini peony or maybe a ranunculus bush. So this one, I have two sitting here, but I really might only need one because look how full this is. And then finally, I have this cute little spray. I love this because it just looks like fun spring florals. This is just adds a little bit of texture. It's gonna add a little bit of flow, as you can see, in motion to my wreath. So I love this, and this will also be something that we kind of put in to the last. So let's talk tools for just a second. I have my trusty clippers right here, so that way I can clip any of these wires on any of the bushes or sprays. So these are just a nice little handy wire cutter. And then I have my amazing ribbon scissors. These things are super sharp, and I love them because they easily cut through my wired ribbon that I'm going to be using. I also am going to be using a zip tie. So I have this zip tie here to use with my bow. And then I also have a piece of green floral wire around here somewhere. What do I do with that floral wire? Okay. I'm going to use this piece of green floral wire also for my bow. I have a hot glue pot right over here and my hot glue gun. So I am ready to rock and roll. So the next thing I'm going to do is lay out my sprays in the order that I'm going to use them. I also, I forgot to mention, I have some ribbon selected too, and I'm going to go over that ribbon here in just a few minutes. So make sure you stick around and see the order that I put the ribbon together and how I selected the ribbons that I'm going to be using. So like I said, I want to put my items kind of in a line here, like think assembly line, in the order that I'm going to use them. I'm always going to start with greenery first because that is going to be the base of our wreath. And then I'm going to use florals after the greenery, okay? And then maybe one thing, there's two different ways that you can actually start a wreath. You can start with your greenery in your base, or you can start with your bow and have everything kind of radiate out from your bow and from your ribbon. So maybe let's start this wreath that way. It'll just be a different way of showing you how to create a spring wreath than maybe in some of our other videos. So let's do that. It's kind of a reverse engineering if you think. Like, you know, most of the time I'll tell you ribbon and your bow is like the icing on top. But this time, let's start with a focal point. Let's start with our icing on the ribbon. I'll show you how to make a bow, and then we'll add in the greenery afterwards. You ready? So I was looking at this fun, colorful pick, and I was noticing the colors in it, right? We have a pink, we actually have kind of a green, there's a lavender, there is a blue, there is a pink, and this is kind of a cream color yellow, a creamy yellow. So if you notice in my ribbons, all of those colors are also represented in, right? So we've got the same colors in the pick. We're going to follow that through with the ribbon. Now most of my flowers are going to be pink, but that's because pink's my favorite color. But I am going to add those other touches of color in with the sugary, glittery Easter eggs and then my ribbon, okay? So then now how do I decide what ribbon I'm going to use in my bow where, okay? So that's the next thing that you have to figure out. So you're gonna obviously put this smaller 1 inch or 1.5 inch ribbon. This is going to be the last ribbon we do. We're gonna build our base. Think of our ribbon like building a pyramid, right? So the base is going to be the largest, and it just depends on your preference. Some people love to put the base ribbon as their favorite ribbon, but I like to think about colors and how they're going to stack up, right? So if we look at this little smaller ribbon here, what ribbon or what color is that going to really pop and look good next to, right? The pink would look really pretty. Really, any of these would look great, but in my estimation, this has just a little smidgen of blue, which will tie it to this ribbon, but I think that it should be the furthest because it doesn't have the most in there. It has this little smidgen of yellow too. So as I'm looking at this, I'm thinking, maybe I should go blue, yellow, pink, and then use this really pretty floral ribbon here at the very last. So let's try that. Again, there's a million different ways you can do it. You can also do it by looking at you can also decide by looking at your ribbon and saying, well, this has a dot pattern, this has a check pattern, this has a circle pattern or a floral pattern, and you can kind of try to mix your patterns differently that way. Again, there's a million different reasons or ways that you can do it. You can also look at your ribbon and say, well, I have the most of this one, so this is going to be my biggest. I'm going to use that as the base first. It really doesn't matter, but at least looking at this, how I decided all 3 of these ribbons go together is because all 3 of these colors are represented in this little one, and this is what's going to tie it all together. It has the blue, it has the yellow, and it has the pink. So this is like my tying ribbon to tie it all together. So let's just start with my base, okay? So I'm going to take this pretty blue ribbon and I'm going to make a base with it. Now technically you can measure out your lengths if you want to and decide how long you want your base ribbon to be. I usually do my ribbon just by feel. So if you want to learn specifically how to make a bow, you can watch one of our other bow making videos for that. But for time's sake, I'm just going to show you how I hand tie a bow. So I'm going to leave a little bit of streamer, and then I'm going to come here and I'm going to unwrap a little bit of this. I'm going to measure, let's see, my streamer, let's have my streamer be about 10 inches. So I'm going to take that, and then I want my bow to be, let's make it 10 inches too. No, it's going to need to be more than that. Let's make it 15. That'll make it about 7.5 inches of a loop. Okay, so my first loop I used 15 inches. I'm going to do the exact same thing here. I'm going to take and start right here, measure 15 inches, and come back and tie that in. So that way I make sure that those 2 little loops are right at the same size. And I'm going to do the same thing one more time. There we go. All right, so on this bow, this is kind of a little bit of a funky bow, and I'm going to show you what I mean by that. So if you look at my bow, I'm using 2 pieces, 2 loops on one side and a 3rd loop on the other side. I'm going to take my scissors and just cut right there. And then what I'm going to do is come back with my next ribbon, and if you see I have 2 on this side, 1 on this side, I'm going to do just the very opposite. So I'm going to bring my yellow in. I'm going to place my streamer right here on the other side, and I'm going to measure these loops to be just about a little bit smaller than my original loop. So I was going 15 on my original, so let's go down just a smidgen, maybe 2 inches, and I'm going to start my next bow just like this, okay? And so I want to make this one just a little bit smaller so that it gives my bow a little bit of dimension. Okay. And if you think about it, I'm just stacking these colors on top of each other on my bow, my ribbon. Okay. Measuring that out. Okay, so now I have 2 loops on this side where I only had 1 blue loop, and on my 2 blue loops I only have 1 yellow loop. Okay, now I'm going to come in with my pink, and I'm going to do just the exact opposite. So my pink streamer is going to come over here on this side, and then I'm going to take my pink and I'm going to keep it about the same size as my yellow. Okay. So I measured that out. It's about the same size as my yellow. I'm just going to keep doing the same exact process with every single color. I'm going to measure out my loop with my crafty mat here. And of course you can do this with a yardstick at home or a ruler, or if you have an easy bow maker, that also makes it very easy, but I don't have my easy bow maker set up right now. So I'm doing this the old-fashioned way here. And the other thing is too, is you can always tell when you have this bow in your hand, you can look at and you can pull the ribbon. If you feel like, oops, that I measured that, but it looks a little bit too big, just pull your ribbon through, okay? I'm going to clip this one off right here, and then I'm going to come in with my final color. This is the one that's going to tie everything together and make it look super duper cute. So I have 2, 1, I'm going to do just the opposite as I'm building this bow. And on this one, I'm just going to measure this one by feel. I just want to make it just a little bit smaller. And when you measure by feel, you can sit there and take these 2 loops and pull and see that they're the exact same size as your other loops. And that's what's most important, is just making those loops the same size. I'm clipping. And here I have my bow. It's almost ready to go, except for I want to, before I place my zip tie in and tighten everything up, I'm going to go in and I'm going to move my loops exactly where I want them and exactly how I want them. I'm going to make sure everything's tight and tucked in where I want it to be. I want all of my different colors showing, so that's really important to me too. So I'm just going to work my bow over just a little bit here to make sure everything is showing as I want it to be before I tighten anything up. Okay, so there I've got a nice pretty bow. You see where that's going to go on my wreath. So the very next thing I'm going to do is take my bow, literally, and I'm just going to turn it over like I'm, one of our people says it's like checking your watch. Like, think about it. I've got my bow made, now it's time to check my watch. So I'm turning my bow over upside down, and right where my index finger is, I'm going to want to put my zip tie. Okay, so I'm going to take it right around the middle of my bow. I'm lifting up my index finger so it's right there, because I have to remember that if I put it to the right or the left of my index finger, it's not going to be exactly in the middle of the bow. Okay, so I have my zip tie right here, just like this. I'm going to take my green floral wire, put it on the back of the bow, because that is what I'm going to use to attach this. I'm going to take and check my bow one more time since I just turned it over. I'm going to make sure nothing went out of place as I did that. And then finally I'm going to take that zip tie and secure it just like that. Okay, nice and tight. I pull that zip tie really tight. I'm going to clip that zip tie off. There is my green wire right there, and that's what I'm going to use to attach it to my wreath. So the final thing in making my bow is I'm going to come through and I'm going to clip all of my edges just like this. That way they look all nice and professional. Just clipping the ends of my ribbon. And this is going to look so cute on my front door. I cannot wait. And just a reminder, the ribbon, all the supplies, everything, we have them all on our website at ambermarieandco.com. So there we go. I've got my cute little bow here. Got it all fixed up. So like I said, we're going to try to reverse engineer this wreath. All right, think about Usually I would tell you that your bow is the icing or the topper of your tree or something like that, but we're doing this exactly opposite. We're going to use our bow as our focal point on our wreath, and then we're going to work everything around it. And I'm going to take, and I'm going to have my bow be right here. So I'm literally just taking my wreath and I'm just sticking that wire right through, and I'm going to take in the very back here and I'm going to twist that bow, twist that wire really good. And at the very end, after I've twisted it around several times, I'm going to take my wire cutters here. I'm going to clip that off and then just tuck that wire in so it's not sticking out. It's not going to scratch my door, anything like that. Okay, I'm going to come over here and kind of adjust my bow just a little bit, how I want it to look on this wreath. Okay, and then I'm going to take one of those pieces of green wire, I have a little bit extra, and I'm going to come over here and I'm going to make a wreath hanger on this. And I'm literally just making a loop in the back of this. But I always want to know, even if I adjust my wreath on my wreath stand, once I take it off, I want to know where I planned the top of my wreath to be. And sometimes sticking that through there is not always the easiest. So here we go. Stick it on there. There we go. Now I'm always going to know where I planned the top of my wreath, even if it were to tragically fall off my wreath stand, I know, whoop, there is the top. Next, we're going to take and start putting our greenery on. So as I plan my wreath and as I start pulling things and items for it, I start looking at what items kind of blend well together, right? So the very first thing is I saw this. It was a really inexpensive piece of greenery, and I thought this is going to make great filler. And I liked the variation of color on this bush, so that's why I'm going to start with it. So the very first thing I'm going to do is just come down here and literally just start clipping all of my branches off. Winston's over there getting comfortable. Clipping all my branches off. And then as I do that, I'm going to separate them as well, because I want about even coverage on either side of my bow on my wreath. So I'm going to just clip these off, and then I'm going to separate them kind of in a way pre-planning on my wreath so that I know how many I have for each side. Now it doesn't mean I'm going to exactly put the same exact number on each side of my wreath, but I like to have just a general idea. So I'm just going to start divvying out 101, 101, there we go. And then if I have a short one, I try to do the same or the same size. There's two short ones. Okay, perfect. That's another great thing when you are shopping for your florals, is looking at when you can buy a single stem for $6.99 or an entire bush for $6.99. You have so much more area, so many more clippings to use. So I always look at that too as I'm pricing out my florals. I want to know how much I'm going to get out of that one single floral. Okay, so I've got my glue pot here, and you can use any kind of a skillet warmer. They actually make glue pots as well. I remember my first glue pot was literally a plug-in, what is it called? An electric skillet. So I've got my greenery here separated, and I'm just going to come in here, put a nice amount of glue on the end of my pick, and I'm going to start right here from the base of my bow. Let's see if I can get that out of there. And I'm going to just start adding greenery right up under my bow. So I have greenery that's going to stick out, just like this. Put a nice amount of glue. And I'm just kind of building this out and away. I'm going to have some kind of come here, and I'm going to start kind of going on the edge of my wreath as well. And we're going to have a lot of things to fill in on this. So your greenery doesn't have to be exactly right next to one another to make this work. And also, all of our greenery that we use is wired, which I love too, because as I put it in my wreath, I can always change exactly where it is just by using the wire that's in the greenery. So this might look just a little sparse on my wreath right now, but that's okay. I'm just building out my base, first and foremost, right here. So we're going to fill in with all of our other flowers and picks. So can't get too worried about how it looks. This is just stage one, just the very, very beginning. Okay, I have one last greenery pick here for the base. And another thing too, if I haven't mentioned already, when you use your glue, you want it to be about the consistency of honey. So it's not too runny, and it's not too thick or too stiff. So about the consistency of honey is what you really want for your glue. So if you can look at my glue here, it's about the consistency of honey. All right, so I've used all my greenery just to kind of start a very sparse base. And now I'm going to do the same thing up coming above. Remember, I sectioned this out. I divided my clippings so that I would have about the same amount on top as I did on the base. Now, if it's not exact, that is okay. And in fact, I might want more on the base than I want on the top. There's not a complete rhyme or reason when you're making these wreaths. You just have to go with what you like, what starts looking good to you. Because that's what's most important, right? This is, all these creations are your creation. So I'm just giving you the basic idea, and then you're going to come through and you're going to make this your own. I promise whatever you do, it's going to look beautiful. And your friends and family are just going to be thrilled. Maybe they won't even believe you made that. Wow. You don't have to even tell them you watched the video. It's fine. It'll be our secret. So there we go. Some really pretty greenery. So if you can kind of see, I'm like making a crescent moon shape or a C shape, or a half circle, if you will, coming out of my bow. Just putting that greenery in. Everything's looking pretty good on our wreath so far. I'm just going to take this one little clipping that I haven't used yet, and I'm just going to set it to the side, and I'm going to start with my next clipping, which is going to be using this pretty bush right here. I love this because it has berries on it. I love it because it has different textures. Like this is a more plasticky bush. This is a more like paper feel. So it's going to add a little bit of a different texture to our wreath. And there's two ways you can use a pick like this. You can keep it whole like this and put it in, or you can take these little clippings and literally you can just tear it off just like this, and you can have several clippings to use. So sometimes when I get down here to the base on this one, I just tore all those other pieces off. Now I'm going to take this one, clip it with my wire clippers. You always say this, and I'll show you why later. And we're going to just start adding these little pretty picks in for a mix of berry wherever we see fit. So first and foremost, I'm just going to take this, I'm going to place it right smack here in the middle, right behind my bow, springing up, because I'm going to want some pretty filler here. I'm going to want some of that pretty berry in there just to look really good. So I've got two of these stems, this exact same one. So this one I'm going to save to use for the bottom, and this is what I have to use for the top. I'm going to just take those. Sometimes see how they're wired. I can just take and I can twist that wire just like this and keep those stems together. Put it in the glue. And now the other place on my wreath, so I have one right here close to the bow. I'm going to want to put one right up here, kind of at the top, further away from the bow. So it'll give the appearance that we have this pretty pick kind of going throughout our whole wreath, right? So here, maybe we'll come in and fill with some flowers or some of our Easter eggs, then we have it here. So they're not right next to each other, okay? That's another important thing, is to remember that you want to make kind of your creation spread out just a little bit so it doesn't look all bunched really close together. So we're thinking, how does this wreath look in nature, growing wild? So we're going to come in with some of these other picks right here and just try to spread that leaf out a little bit, add some greenery in other places. And this is all just filler. We're just making this wreath full of greenery because we're going to come in with the flowers here in just a second. So I'm just going to take this Anywhere I feel like I need to spread just a little bit of greenery to mix in is where it's going. So this is where you'll just learn to be able to eye it on your wreath, right? You might not have it 100% perfect, but you know what? Nobody's going to know, because again, this is your creation. It's going to be perfect to you. And don't overthink it. That's the other thing is sometimes I'll see people who are making these and they'll move things, 4 or 5 different times. And I'm like, usually it's the place that you had it the first that was really the best. Like you already knew that, and then you start second guessing yourself. So here's my next spray. I'm going to do the same thing. As you can see, I just literally just tear this off just like this. I'll take one of those little wires, wrap it around the others to keep it secure. So I've got another leaf there. Do the same thing here. I want to maybe make this one a cluster, so I'm going to just twist those around together as well. Okay, that's all trash. And then here is my final pick. I'm just going to take that, save this for later. And then this is the one I'm going to start with. So you can see I kind of use that one here. I'm going to do the exact same thing coming down at the base of this one also. So I'm putting that in my glue pot here. Good, nice amount of glue. Sticking it right up inside by the bow. And that's going to just pop out real nicely there. And then I'm going to take my other one that has the little white berries, my other little clipping, and I'm going to move it out here to the outer edge, just like I did up top. So we have some berries poking out here, some berries here, and then I'm just going to use these other little clippings just as filler. Just putting them in my wreath where I think they will need to go. And this is all filler until we get our flowers in. So, oops. Okay, so we've got our greenery base ready to go. All the green is on the wreath. Now it's time to start adding in some flowers. Again, the Easter eggs I'm going to put at the very, very last. So let's start with this really pretty pink floral bush right here. It is a ranunculus bush, and it has several different clippings on it too. Again, this is one that has a paper stem, so you can either pull it if it'll pull. This one's a little tough to pull, so I'm just going to clip it. So I have one clipping, and I have 2 of these bushes here. I don't know if we're going to need both of them or not, but I'm just trying to kind of separate them out, divide them as I clip here. And each one of these clippings actually has a flower on it. So there we go. So I have what? 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. So this is the last and final one. Then I have this little piece right here that's kind of the leftover. So I'm going to take that and put that over here in my little pile where I sometimes will have a leftover, and that's what I'm going to use at the very end when I see a little hole or someplace where it just needs a little bit of filler. Okay, also I have this extra little ranunculus. I'm going to set it to the side also, and I'm just going to start trying to keep my wreath even by taking these little picks. I'm going to separate the flowers out a little bit so that all these little flowers are going to show wherever I place. I'm going to start with placing, I'm going to start actually by placing this little small one, my short. And the reason that I decided to do that is because I'm going to come right by my bow, and I don't need a long stem, I need a shorter stem for my first flower to be right behind my bow. Another great thing about grapevine too is that you can always stick your flower there, step back, look at it, see before you put the glue even on where you want something, and it'll just hold in place. So that's always really nice too. So I've got my flower right here. I'm going to come back, sticking it in right where I had it. Let that glue dry just a second, and there I have my first little pink ranunculus flower right above my bow. So good little focal point there. Now I'm going to take my next flower. I want it to kind of stick up just a little bit too. One thing also to remember while making and creating your wreaths is that you don't want all of your flowers like just stuck right to your wreath. You want to give them some life. You want them sticking out. You want them sticking even above your wreath. You know, nothing in nature grows in a perfectly round or perfectly C shape like we have here. So it's okay if they kind of get just a little bit wild, right? Just a little bit pulling away from your wreath so that it doesn't look so perfect. It's okay for it to look a little wild. These are kind of wild flowers looking anyways. I'm going to come right up here and put this one right at the very top of my wreath. So I've kind of spread out my little pink flowers here just a little bit. You can see them. These are all wired, so at the very end I can always wire my flower exactly where I want it to show up. Okay, so you can kind of see how that's looking right now. So that's the top part. Now I'm going to go onto the lower section of my C and do exactly the same thing. I'm going to start with my smaller little flower here, coming right out from the bow. Put a nice amount of glue on it. Come right in here. And you know, I'm just gluing this directly to the grapevine. So it's just going directly to the grapevine, coming right out. And then also, something to remember, when you're making the bottom of your wreath, it's always nice to have some flowers that actually just come directly straight down. So I think I'm going to take maybe this one and have it coming right out of my bow, almost directly straight out of my bow, not in line with the wreath. It's a little bit out of the line, out of the shape of the wreath, right here. Like I was telling you earlier, right, we don't want everything to be in a perfect C or round shape. So that kind of gets out of that shape just a little bit, making your wreath even fuller. And then my third and final one I'm going to put right over here, coming up, and kind of mixing that in with those little white berries. Okay, it's looking really cute. I still have this last one. I'm going to put it to the side. This is all my finishing touches. Sometimes I'll come in and put a flower right in the middle of my bow. I make that decision at the very end. I want to see what else I have and what else I'm working with first. So I'm not going to do that quite yet. I'm actually going to come in with these cute little fuzzy, I love these, just a little fuzzy floral ball. They add movement, they add shape, they add some character to this wreath. So I'm just going to start clipping this, and I'm just going to add it, a little glue drippage, anywhere that I see that I can just use a little pop of pink, a little pop of texture. It just looks really fun in your wreath, I think. And then some of the stems, when you clip them, are going to be just a little bit longer than the others, so you can use them for height if you need to. Or when they're a little bit longer, I like to take them and put them on the very outer edge of my wreath so that they just kind of hang just a little bit. So if you have a little breeze on your front door or something, it's going to blow that flower just a little bit and create a little bit of motion. So I really like to do that. And then as you can see here, I've clipped all the others. I'm going to save this last clipping here if I can. Oh, that's a tight one. There we go. And I'm going to keep that all together and clip it right in here. I just have a little blank spot right in there. So I'm going to keep all those together and really fill this blank spot out, attaching that to my wreath, which makes it super easy. Okay. And I've just filled that in with some flowers. I'm going to do the same thing with my other one, but I'm going to do this on the bottom part. So clipping, clipping. Going to leave this one a little bit longer. Always save these. They come in handy when you're putting something in your wreath. Okay, I'm going to do the same exact thing. I'm going to start with this bigger one. Put it right down here in the base of my wreath. There we go. Have it kind of coming out and down. And then just keep plugging away here. Anywhere I feel like I need a little pop of color, a little movement. Just filling this out. Put some right here. And this is all by choice, so wherever you feel like you need something, It's just your choice of where you think it needs to go. But I mostly try to look at where I need color, if I see a piece of grapevine showing through that I think, oof, I really need that to be a little bit better hidden, then that's where I will choose to put those. I also have these really cute tulips that I told you I might want to use. So let's go ahead and put them in there, because tulips are so fun for spring. I love them. And I've got a cute little bundle here that's a little bit extra. So I'm going to take this, all of these are separate. I'm going to go 2, 2, 2, 2, 2. And I've just divided them out so I know how many I have for the top, how many I have for the bottom. So I have 2, 4, 2, 4, there we go. 5 for top, 5 for bottom. And a lot of times on tulips, what I will do is actually pair them together in a cluster. Sometimes I'll do 2, sometimes I'll do 3 together. So I'm going to take those 2. I'm actually going to cut them so that they are the same length. You don't have to do that, but just sometimes when sticking them in the wreath, they tend to stay a little bit better together. So I dabbed them both in the glue together, and I'm going to take this little guy and I'm going to put it right in here. I have this little mixture just popping right here. These are also wired too, which I really love, so I can kind of take those and put them wherever I feel like they need to go. So I've got those 2 wired there. I'm going to trim this one up just a little bit too. I'm going to add these at the very top. And if you'll notice too, what I'll do is I have one just be a little bit longer than the other one. And that just gives us a little bit more dimension and a little bit more control so that they're not side by side. You don't really want your tulips to be right side by side, because it adds a little bit more coverage, a little bit more flair when they are, one's a little bit longer than the other. So we've got those coming up too. Okay, that's looking really cute, and we don't even have the eggs in yet, so I love it. And then this one, how about I've got this one little tulip left. You can either have him coming down here or putting him right up here on the top. So I'm looking at this and I think this would probably be the best place, because I kind of have a little bit of a hole there. So I'm going to trim that up just a little bit, dab my glue, and I'm going to put this guy right in here, right where I felt like I had kind of a little bit of a hole. There you go, little guy. Perfect. Now let's do the exact same thing on the bottom. I'm taking one of my tulips, I'm pushing it up. These are not level, but I'm about to make them level with a little clip here. And I'm going to dab them in the glue together, get a good amount of glue on. And this one I'm going to start by having it come kind of crawling up my wreath on the outside. Right there. Do the same thing here. Putting those 2 together, dabbing them in the glue. Bring them right down here. Just having those crawling and sticking straight out of our arrangement. I'm going to take my final one. I think I'm going to put it right here. Clip it just a little bit. Okay. And I'm going to take it and put it right here in our wreath. All right, so it is time to put the eggs on our wreath. This is the actual last finishing touch that we're going to do. Now we still have a couple of flowers, so at the end, if there's anything that we feel like is still missing, we can use that. And now, while I have these eggs that are all brand new, these are mine left over from last year. So I love repurposing things. If this happens to you, which it's going to happen, this is the easy fix. You just put a little dab of glue on the end right there. It's not the end of the world for one of these little eggs to come off your pick. Okay, we'll just glue it right back on there. I'm going to let that one sit for a second, and I'm going to take these eggs and I'm going to kind of separate them out on the pick by what branch they're on, and then I'm just going to clip them. Okay, there's 2 ways to do this. You could leave this all in one pick and use the entire pick if you wanted to, but I like to clip so that I have a little bit more control over where I'm putting each one of these. All right, so I've got these little eggs right here, and I have one pick to use on the top, one pick to use on the bottom. Hey, Winston, Are you joining me? Do you like the wreath that we're making? Do I need to slide this over here so we can actually see what we're doing? Is that better? All right. So Winston has joined me. He is my little helper, and he likes to lay right in the way. As you can see, he's probably going to sit down. Let's see if he does. So he's checking out product. All right, are you checking out quality control here? Do you like the wreath so far? Yes, thank you. All right, little buddy, can you sit over there in your spot? Go, 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 go. There we go. All right, he's got a big old noggin. There, so now can we still see what we've got going on here? He's literally right in the camera. What are you doing, sir? Huh? What is it? You don't like me having all the spotlight here? Oh, I'll scoot you over. There we go. Okay, good boy. Yeah, you're good. Okay, so if you guys can still see, I'm going to start placing our finishing touches here. Now, this pick has a white background, so I'm going to do my best when I'm placing it to hide it with other flowers. All right, I had to move Winston over just a little bit. You can see him still over here on the side of the camera. Lay down. Down. He wants to be up here because he likes to be in the action of everything, and he also wants to know what I'm doing. So he's more like a cat than a dog. He wants to be up here and see everything. So he's going to check out, are these good, you think? Okay. So I'm going to, I already have a pick right over here settled. This is going to be my very first one. I have it in glue, and I'm going to take it, and I want an Easter egg poking out right at the very edge, right there. I'm doing my best to kind of take and manipulate these eggs around whatever greenery branches I have to hide those greenery branches just a little bit. And I'm just going to kind of have these, it's like an Easter egg hunt, right? These eggs are just going to randomly, I'll take that one off there, randomly poke out of my wreath like they're growing wild in my flowers. Okay, they're sugary, they're fun, they have some glitter on them, so they just look so pretty coming out of my arrangement in all different areas. Maybe I'll put this one down here. So I'm just going to take this, dab it in the glue, and I'm going to have this one poking out right underneath my ribbon. And I have one last little guy right here, which I think I'm going to have placed right in the middle. So here is our first little round of eggs. Perfect. I've got lots of glue strings, and that's the other thing I'm going to tell you. You can always take and use a hot blow dryer, and just take that hot blow dryer, put it on your arrangement just for a few seconds to melt all those little glue sprays away. Okay, I've got my second pick here. I'm going to trim all of these eggs off, just like this. And we're going to do the exact same thing on the top that we did on the bottom of our wreath. Move that over, save that for later. And I'm going to just hide these little eggs in wherever I think we need them. So of course, I like to have some eggs right here on the very end. So I'm going to kind of hide that branch back in there, twist some of my flowers around so you can't see the white. I've got a cute little ranunculus right there. I'm going to bring it forward. Okay. I'm going to take the second pick, take that little egg off of there. Do the exact same thing here. See, where do I want those eggs really showing through? Place my eggs right in here. And then I've got one more bunch of eggs, which I think I'm going to put that close to my floral arrangement down here. I'm actually going to separate those just a little bit. That way I can get some really good placement on these. So I'm going to take this blue egg, stick it right down in here to give me a little bit of height. Okay, coming out. I'm going to take this pink egg and put it right down in here. And I separated those because when you have a really light object like this, it's easy. You can not only attach it to the base of your wreath, but also if you have other stems down in there or other flowers, you can easily attach it to the flower too. What do you think, Winston? Huh? Is it looking good? You like it? You silly boy. So I have most all of our eggs placed on this wreath where I want them. I think it's looking really good. The only last thing I'm going to do is in the middle of my bow right here, I think I want to put one of those little eggs. I have one little egg left. It's not a very big one. It's just a little guy. But I think if I were to just clip this down to the very little parts, I think I can take and put that Easter egg right in the middle of my bow, and I think that's going to look really cute. So I'm just going to dip that egg in a good amount of glue here so it stays really well. And I'm just going to separate my bow and put my little Easter egg just right in the middle of it, just like that. I still have a few of my little sprigs of greenery left, so I'm going to just take a step back. Sometimes I'll just move my wreath back a little bit and really just take a really good look at it and see any place that I can maybe see hot glue, or if I feel like this looks really full but this maybe needs a little spot right here, like that looks really good. It would look good coming in right here because I'm missing any pink right in this area. So I think that would look really cute too. I'm just going to try to kind of play around and see. That's why I save this, because I want to see where I might need. And I think that this looks actually like a really good opportunity for this little spray. So I'm going to separate everything out real good, put a nice amount of glue on, and I'm going to put this in my arrangement as one of the last steps. I always like to save something at the end because it's inevitable there might be one little spot that I feel like needs a little love. So I'm going to move this one over. Have this one kind of coming up right in here. Move that over. And these are all wired too, so that's the other thing, is you can always get them up here and manipulate or trim something off. Like this little guy's just not working for me, so I'm going to trim it off. I don't need it, but I just want just a little bit more green right here sticking out behind my bow, because now I'm looking at it like, okay, this is what's going to be my final project on my front door. If there's anything, any little tweaking, any little changes when my guests walk up to my front door and see my wreath, this is the moment where I'm going to make any of those changes. So like I said, if you feel like you have a big glob of glue, this is a great time to cover that up and to really look at your wreath and fix it just exactly how you're going to want to have it hanging on your front door. So there you have it, a beautiful Easter wreath with florals mixed in with sugary, glittery eggs. I think this is absolutely gorgeous. I showed you how to make a bow, how to put this all together. Now it's your time to go in and create and make this beautiful wreath your own. Pick up all of the items at ambermarieandco.com. And I can't wait to see your finished product. Make sure you follow us on Facebook. Show us your pictures, because we're always excited to see what you create. Thank you.